important factors. One, that in this country there are large tracts of land, so that as you move around, you wonder who owns them and how they are used. And some are ranches, so the owners say they are well used. Some you wonder what they are being used for. That is a fact that we are all aware of. You move in some places and you are told this land belongs to an individual family, and you are moving for miles and miles in a vehicle, and the land still belongs to one person or a group of people. The second fact, Mr. Speaker, which is also a reality, in some parts of this country, the pieces of land are so small, and the subdivision is going on to infinitesimal small portions that are cannot even be productive. There are jokes that in some places, if you have a roof that has no collection, the water from your roof falls into another person's land. That's how small they are, and that is also a reality. And then a third factor now comes from the constitutions that we have, Article 68C1, that provides for a minimum and a maximum acreage of land in respect to private land. So if you put those three factors, you actually get a huge issue that needs very serious consideration, because people with a small land will say, the Constitution entitles me to land. But the same Constitution, Mr. Speaker, in Article 40, also gives the right to property, which includes possession of that property, control of that property, and I guess that also means its use, exclusion, so that it's exclusively owned by the person, and also enjoyment and disposition. Again, you find yourself in a situation where you have the Constitution on one hand giving the right to own at least a small piece, and on the other hand, to own, even if it's a large piece or a small piece. And on the other hand, a Constitution which is saying you should put limitations. But this actually just indicates, Mr. Speaker, the huge problem of land we have. In this country, there is even conflict between the conservationists, even the forest land, and people. We know there are communities that have been caught for a long period of time because they are being denied the use of land which the nation and the state sees as forest land in which people should not live. That are also there. Mr. Speaker, again, the same issue of land. We have structures, we have systems, we have laws, and in government, there are offices that deal with land. But we have reached a situation of land where the purchase of land is so unsafe that properties, that the titles that you receive are no longer sacrosanct as they should be. You have a title, and you are told that that title was not properly acquired. And yet, the only provision for an individual is to go to the Ministry of Lands and do a search. And what that search gives you, Mr. Speaker, you are a lawyer. What else does an individual do if you have gone to the custodian of all the processes of land as enshrined in the law, and those custodians then violate the processes? So that this has been a huge issue. It has been so huge that even before the Constitution, I think, we had the Ndungu Commission, which actually gave a lot of recommendations that look reasonable on what to do where somebody has owned land, has developed it on the belief that it's theirs. Then you find that the processes unknown to them were not followed, and therefore rendering the titles probably not as legal as they should be. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, as I support this motion, which calls for regulation that will anchor the Constitution, Article 68, but I think it's not just the regulations. I think you may have to look at the whole, Land Act and all other acts before we even talk of the regulation. But something needs to be done, That's why I support this motion, that it will actually provoke some action of looking not only at the regulations, but actually all the acts that relate to land. In my view, Mr. Speaker, I think the midway would probably be the use of land. The tract you have, however large it is, how are you using it? And two, the taxation of land. We should not have a situation where actually people suffer when we think large tracts are not being used properly. We are all terrestrial animals. Where else can we live if the land does not belong to us? Very soon people may just say, the air is also mine, so what shall we breathe? So I think what we should look at, and I'd ask the mover to actually follow this up, not just in regulations when it comes to implementation, but even looking at all the acts that are involved, so that we look at the utilization, because if land, however large land is, if it is used well, it will be productive to the country. If it produces food, it will feed people. It produces things that are exported, it will improve the economy. And also the tax, because if the tax comes in, then even the people who don't have land will benefit from the taxation. With that, Mr. Speaker, I support this, but I support the motion, but I add that we must look at it very, very broadly with historical issues, that with illegal issues that are pending in court, and the commissions that have been put in place and their reports that have actually not been implemented. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.